Alright, so this is the video I did, The Melanated World, a non-Afrocentric view, dispelling the myth of Afrocentrically biased scholarship. Now, when a lot of us Pan-Africans say, that Africans were first everywhere, Africans were the Native Americans, or they were the first people here on the soil, we get accused of being Afrocentrically biased. We being I seen a few of us being called culture vultures for people saying that we have appropriated Native American culture. But we're gonna put that talk to rest today and show everybody that Africa was a global culture. What they were doing was a global phenomenon. So who is Ivan Van Sertima? Ivan Van Sertima wrote books like They Came Before Columbus, a history book about pre-Columbus South America, and he was basically proving Africans were here. And my favorite quote is at the bottom. This is something I always remembered Ivan Van Sertima said: Africa is a scattered diamond. So I did this like I was in court and y'all the jury of my peers. So there's three ways I chose to prove myself, and that's through witnesses who are going to be my primary sources, the people who actually went out there and wrote down and drew what they saw. Testimony will be the linguistic evidence that the actual indigenous people left, and the physical evidence would be art, architecture, and plants, basically getting into the culture. So I'm going to start here from a quote from the books of Marco Polo, The Description of the World. For when boys or girls are born in this province, you must know that they are born black, but not so black as they are made afterwards. Because it is true that when the infant is born, B is born fair, but they anoint him once a week with sesame oil. That is how they make them become more black than they were born a great deal. So they become black as a devil. And see, right there, he already relating blackness to evil. That's where the psychology begins in books like this. For I tell you that in the country he wore is more black. From the country he who is more black is more precious than the others in beauty, and is held better than the others who are not so black. And he keeps going to say, and again I tell you another thing, for I tell you quite truly that they make those people have all their gods and their idols portrayed and painted very black. I just did a video on black. I had to go back and do this one. I was like, I might as well. So Marco Polo, it's the dude that wrote this. He was a Venetian merchant and adventurer. Marco Polo traveled from Europe to Asia from 1271 to 1295. That's what he was talking about in that excerpt. I forgot to say that. He was born 1254 in Venice, Italy. He did a lot of traveling and shit. He wrote about the shit basically. All right. So we're gonna talk about Diodorus Siculus, and I'm gonna mess up a lot of pronunciations. I can't pronounce these white folks' names and these Native American tribes. So y'all forgive me. Don't take offense of it. The information's in front of you. If you know how to say it, congratulations. Alright, excuse my background noise. You know how it is. Alright, so he was a Greek historian who flourished in Sicily in the 1st century BC. He wrote a history of the world in 40 books, which indulged large sections devoted to myth, legend, and the unusual customs of foreign tribes. Alright, so that's him on the side. On the right side, that's his background. On the left is an excerpt from one of his little history books. Okay. The spread of the Egyptian culture included a purported migration to Mesopotamia, with the Egyptian priesthood supposedly becoming the famous Chaldeans. Diodorus Siculus relates the Egyptians as maintaining that a large number of their colonies went into the civilized world, with Belus taking his colonists to Babylon, where he appointed priests who were exempt from taxes and free of all civic obligations, just like those of Egypt. Another colony went with Danas to Argos, nearly the oldest city in Greece. Diodorus also writes that the Egyptians claimed the Athenians and the Colchians of Pontus as their own, and that the Jews lying between Syria and Arabia were also settled by certain expatriates from Egypt. This latter assertion explains why the male children of these ethnicities are circumcised, and circumcision is age-old custom imported from Egypt. Diodorus continues his travelogue, stating that Osiris ranged over the entire inhabited world, bringing with him culture in the vine as well as beer. Osiris then returned to Egypt loaded with gifts from every country, which was defied after his death. Diodorus also describes the origin of certain rituals, the focus on wine and not cutting one's hair practiced by widespread brotherhood that in Palestine would become known as Nazarites or Nazarenes, major players in the creation of Christianity. Alright, so we're going to go to the Journal of Royal Institution of Cornwall. So this right here, this map right here, this little area that's highlighted, that's Cornwall. So this comes out of the footprints. This excerpt on the left comes out of a book called Footprints of Vanished Races in Cornwall. I believe that the first human beings who entered Cornwall in the Neolithic period belonged to a race. I'm sorry, this excerpt comes out that book I just showed you, and that's what this section is called. It's on page 280. I believe that the first human beings who entered Cornwall in the Neolithic period belonged to a race of dwarfs or pygmies and are veritable little people. The study of dwarf races is a new branch of anthropology, and it has wonderfully developed during the last 20 years. Ancient classical authors mention pygmies living in remote parts of Asia and Africa, and the conflicts of the latter with the cranes are described in amusing language. These stories were for long thought to be childish inventions, but recent discoveries have proved that they were perfectly correct. When the Dutch occupied South Africa, they met the dwarf Bushmen, who were the smallest pygmies in the world. Okay, this is coming out of the same book. So Mr. R.G. Hallenberton has traced these pygmy races into Morocco and Spain. Long ago, Jacob Grimm concluded from the tradition of elves, gnomes, and trolls current in Germany that dwarf races inhabited Central Europe in prehistoric times. And Professor Nielsen has come to the same conclusion concerning Scandinavia. Up here on the right, dwarf races inhabited Britain previous to the Celtic invasion, and these views have met with general acceptance. Now, one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning of this video, I'm going to use majority white sources, so we can't say that any of this information is being from a biased African source, since that's what the claim is. Even from white and black people, that's what the claim is. This is gonna shut that shit down. Alright. So we go down to the next underlying part. Cornwall then was in the early days of the Neolithic age, inhabited by a race of pygmies like the Bushmen of South Africa. Alright, so this is from a book, Riddles of Prehistoric Times by James Anderson, 1911. So, the Iberians in ancient times inhabited the western and south part of Europe. The northern part of Africa, in fact, all parts reach from the Mediterranean Sea. The Basques in Spain and France, the little dark Welshmen, the Scot and black Celts to the west of the Shannon River in Ireland, as well as the same kind of men in Brittany and Aquitaine in France, the Gontis of the Canary Islands, the Berbers in Africa are all probably remnants of the race. So this is not us saying this is them. The first inhabitants of southern Europe, northern Africa, Arabia, France, and the British Islands were of a race of small men who not averaged in height more than about 4 feet 5 inches. They were of slight build with dark complexion. Now, ignore this bunk-ass Lemuria claim. You can go back and watch my Lemuria video. They were an African people, and there appears evidence that they sometimes practice cannibalism. You can ignore this shit too, because they're gonna go out their way to do anything to make it look as savage as possible. The cave dwellers from Lemuria thing is because in the Lemuria, if you study the history, they have a origin of races, and they put us back at these little dumb monkey people, basically. So you can ignore that Lemuria claim. It is indisputable that in ancient times the Negroes occupied Mexico. They brought their own religious cults and ideas. Vicente Rive Palacio. It's in Mexico at Travels de los Siglos, Volume 1, page 63 through 67. The Negro type is seen in the most ancient Mexican sculpture. The Negroes figure frequently in the most remote traditions of some American pueblos. It is to this race doubtlessly belongs the most ancient skeletons, distinct from the red American race, which have been found in various places from Bolivia to Mexico. It is likely that we repeat, America was a Negro continent. Carlos Cervo Marquez. That comes out of Estudios Arqueológicos y Etnográficos, Volume 1. The almost extinction of the original Negroes during the time of the Spanish conquest and the memories of them in the most ancient traditions induce us to believe that the Negroes were the first inhabitants of Mexico. Dr. Nicolas Leon. That comes out of Historia General de Mexico. Okay, so here is Hubert Howe Bancroft. Now these excerpts come out of a book called The Native Races of the Pacific States of North America, 1874. Page 364. And I'm trying to read through this pretty fast. This is going to be a long video. I'm going to let y'all know. If you're not into deep information like this, you're probably not going to like it. So cut it off now. But I mean, this is information that as an African you should want to know. So, page 364, Californians. Their height rarely exceeds 5 feet 8 inches and is more frequently 5 feet 4 or 5 inches, and although strongly, they are seldom symmetrically built. A low retreating forehead, black, deep, soft eyes, thick, busy eyebrows, salient cheekbones, a nose depressed at the root and somewhat widespread at the nostrils, a large mouth with thick, prominent lips, teeth large and white, but not always regular, and rather large ears is the prevailing type. Their complexion is much darker than that of the tribes further north, often being nearly black, so that with their matted bushy hair, which is frequently cut short, they present a very uncouth appearance. On page 365, at Bodega Bay, they are an ugly, brutish race, many with Negro profiles. Page 103, their complexion is a dark mahogany, or often nearly black. Their face is round and square, with features approximating nearer to the African than the Indian. On the Sacramento were fine, robust men of low stature and badly formed. Okay, that's page 198. The mouth is very large and the nose broad and depressed, chiefly distinguished by their dark color. Their features are coarse, broad, and of dark chocolate color. So this is just describing people all around California. These California Indians. Here's a picture on the right of one of the last. This is one of the last pictures they had of one of the last dark natives. So this is Father Garces, explored Arizona and California. He was assigned to Mission San Xavier del Bac, which was situated near Tucson, Arizona. When the Spanish arrived in Arizona, they reportedly found black communities. In 1775, Father Francis Garces discovered black men, clearly African, living in a community beside the Zuni Indians in New Mexico. According to the French anthropologist Adecourt Trefages, Father Garces found two races, one black, the other red, that spoke different languages. Father Garces said he was told, "Les Noirs étaient les anciens habitants du pays." The blacks were the ancient inhabitants of the land. In New Mexico and Arizona, De Faca found numerous ethnic groups speaking a multiplicity of languages. Due to the pluralistic nature of these societies, the people could only communicate using sign language. Saram and the first Americans noted that in reality, the inhabitants of the Pueblos, as we know, were members of extraordinarily varied tribes. They spoke wildly different languages and had different historical backgrounds. De Vaca said that one of these ethnic groups was named Mandika. This name is almost identical to the word Mandika, the name of the Mandic-speaking people of Africa. I want you to remember that. That's important information. I'm going to skip that. So this is from Giovanni de Verrazzano, as recorded in a letter to King Francis I, July 8th, 1524. So we're going to go down to this highlighted section. And we're going to do a lot of reading until we get to the visuals. So I know this is hard to see, and I know my reading gets unbearable sometimes, but bear with me, because the information is worth it. So, coming to the shore, but they fled when they saw us approaching. Several times they stopped and turned back to look at us in great wonderment. We reassured them with various signs, and some of them came up, showing great delight at seeing us and marveling at our clothes, appearance, and our whiteness. They showed us by various signs where we could easily secure the boat. So this is him admitting that they already knew how to communicate with signs with people that didn't understand their language. So this is backing up an earlier claim that we read from somebody else. And offered us some of their food. We were on land, and I shall now tell your majesty briefly what we were able to learn of their life and customs. So this next highlighted part is what this explorer is writing back to the king. They go completely naked except that around their loins they wear skins of small animals like martens. Now this is I forgot to mention that this is an explorer that came from Spain to America, and I want to say he touched down in Florida. That's what I want to say. So the rest of the world, like martens, with narrow belt of grass around the body, to which they tie various tails of other animals which hang down to the knees. The rest of the body is bare, and so is the head. Some of them wear garlands of birds' feathers. They are dark in color, not unlike the Ethiopians, with thick black hair, not very long, tied behind their head like a small pony, like a small tail. As for the physique of the men, they were well proportioned, of medium height, a little taller than we are. They have broad chests, strong arms, and the legs and other parts of the body are well composed. There is nothing else except that they tend to be rather broad in the face, but not all, for we saw many with angular faces. They have big black eyes and an attentive and open look. They were not very strong, but they have a sharp cunning and are agile, swift runners. So not only did the pygmies make their way, but this was obviously a whole different tribe of Africans who had made their way. So, this is inference of ancient black Mexican tribes in DNA. The references here is at the bottom. Winners see inference of ancient black Mexican tribes. Web, MED Central Genetics 2015. If you just type that shit in, this article will come up. It's long. It talks about more stuff. But to get through it quick, I just had this highlighted section. So we're going to start at the beginning of the paragraph though. Researchers have suggested that sub-Saharan Africans were among the first Americans. Spanish explorers found sub-Saharan African communities in Mexico when they arrived. Sub-Saharan Africans were living in Mexico in 1492. These sub-Saharan Africans were trading with the Mongoloid Amerindians, in addition to having their own settlements in the Americas. Americo Vespucci met African merchants on their way back to West Africa in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. That's all I want y'all to see out there. So, this is a monthly record of anthropological science, published under the direction of the Royal Anthropological Institute of Great Britain and Ireland. So, at the top right here, it says Negro skeletal remains from Indian sites in the West Indies. The recent paper in this journal by Buxton, Trevor, and Julian implies that an undeformed Negro physical type inhabited the Virgin Islands in the pre-Columbian times. This is a undeformed Negro physical type, which means it was a Negro that was undeformed. He wasn't just mixed up with other non-Negro culture. So this is from a book called The History of the American Indians, North and South America. Oh, we can go without this slide actually. It may seem surprising to read, but the earliest people migrating to America of Negritic African origin were of Negritic African origin. It is estimated that they stepped on the Americas possibly as 100,000 years ago. People from this cradle of civilization ventured around the world. The natives took a journey from the Sahara Desert, which was a wetland and big lake at the time, towards the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean, while natives from the West Africa region looked towards the Atlantic Ocean. The Americas, according to Gowden Thesis, journey occurred some 75,000 years ago. The people who dared to travel and explore included tribes of black Negritic origin, black pygmies, and black Australoids who were similar. Research in various fields, including linguistics, has led to findings indicating the ancient Olmecs of Mexico, also known as the Zai people, originated from West Africa. They were of Mende African ethnic origin. The Mende script has been found there and stuff. So, in the Ouachita Territory, southern U.S., a stone carving depicting a Negroid person. Now, all this information I'm giving you is important because it's all going to lap and tie into each other. and again and again and again. So remember as much as you can. This shit gonna be like 2 hours long probably. So this is Webster's Dictionary, 1828. American. Now, a Native American, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. So, American Indian hair. This is a quote from Books, Letters, and Notes on the North American Indigenous People of America by George Catlin, 1841. All primitive tribes known in America are dark. That's how they started the sentence. All primitive tribes known in America are dark, copper color, with jet black hair, while most possess curls in the extreme and every level of wavy hair in between. The texture of the hair is generally fine, soft, or silk, or coarse or harsh. And we're going to keep going. But, you know, at the bottom, he talks about today's form of hair is called locks. You know what I'm saying? So this is George Catlin. He ain't got no reason to lie. He ain't like us either. American artist George Catlin recorded Native American culture in his sketches and portraits. The Smithsonian acquired most of his work in 1879. So he had no reason to lie. Like, he not gonna write one thing and draw another. Like, that'll discredit his work. You know how white people is about their work. So Estevanico was probably one of sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. This comes out of the Encyclopedia of Muslim American History. Estevanico, 1500-1539, he was an explorer. He was probably one of the first Muslims to set foot in the Americas. Born in an Arabic-speaking city on the northwest African coast around 1500, Estevanico was impressed into an early 16th century Spanish colonial expedition as a nobleman's slave and became a valuable interpreter and intermediary during two ill-fated excursions into North America. Now, listen to this information I just read to you. He was born in a northwest African coast Arabic-speaking city. He was hired to go on a colonial expedition as a valuable and ended up becoming a valuable interpreter and intermediary. So the people that he ran into in North America had to have a similar dialect that he was speaking in his West African Arabic speaking city. So he spent his years in Azamor, a purportedly Muslim city in modern day Morocco, known for its wheat production and fishing along the banks of the Ribia River. During Estevanico's childhood, this lush coastal region became the site of conflict between North African Berbers and the Portuguese, who had begun to enslave West African captives in these seminal years of the Atlantic slave trade. So this is not our words for it. This is theirs. He went to a land that he had never been to and was used as a translator. So this is just more backgrounds on him. The first African American, right here at the bottom. When a Moroccan slave named Estevanico arrived in Florida as part of a group of Spanish explorers in 1528, he became both the first known African American and the first American Muslim. He functioned as a guide and translator, but he was the first one. Think about that shit. So we're going to go over here to a book called Long and Strange, Rediscovering the New World by Tony Horwitz. This excerpt says, other Spanish accounts tell a different story. According to one, Estefanico offended Marcos because he was with Marco, I forgot his name. But anyways, he was with some hoe-ass explorer, but he got offended because he was taking the women the Indians gave him, collecting turquoises, and amassing a quantity of both. Also, the Indians understood the black better because they had already seen him before. As he proceeded north, he gathered an entourage of some 300 natives and began carrying a gourd with bells and feathers, re-inhabiting the role that Cabeza de Vaca's troupe had played several years before. Before leaving, Marcos, however, agreed to keep the friar informed by sending back messages. Okay, that's all that was really important. Okay. So this is Nino Pedro Alonso. Pedro Alonso Nino was a Spanish explorer known as El Negro, a native of Moguer, Spain. Nino acted as a pilot of the Santa Maria during the first voyage of Christopher Columbus. So this nigga steered the ship. I want y'all to understand this shit. In 1499, Nino and Christopher Guerrero received permission from Bishop Juan Rodriguez de Fonseca to explore the Gulf of Paria on the island of Margarita. They bartered for a considerable quantity of pearls and then made their way to Cubega Islands, which they believed to be part of Tierra Firme. There they traded for a substantial amount of pearls and returned to Spain in April 1500. Only to be imprisoned for illegally concealing part of the wealth they had acquired in the New World. So yeah, he steered him around. He tried to hit a lick. He went to jail, pretty much. But it's the reason why they chose him. Because white people didn't know their way around the sea. So this comes from the Select Letters of Christopher Columbus, Volume 43, page 137, the third voyage. When I was off of the island of Hagen and its vicinity, which is 20 degrees to the north of the equinoctial line, I found the people are black and the land very much burnt. And when after that I went to Cape Verde Islands, I found the people there much darker still. And the more southward we went, the more they approached the extreme of blackness. So that when I reached the parallel of Sierra Leone, he said he reached the parallel of Sierra Leone, somewhere he felt was exactly like Sierra Leone. Whereas night came on, the North Star rose 5 degrees and the people were excessively black. So I'm showing y'all, all they seen was people who reminded them of Africans everywhere they were. So this is from a book called Africans and Native Americans, written by Jake D. Forbes, this fake Indian dude at the bottom. So Columbus was also aware that Africans may well have utilized ocean currents to navigate to the Americas. His 1498 voyage specifically used the southern route from the Cabo Verde Islands to Trinidad, an easy crossing traveled consistently thereafter by Spaniards, Portuguese, Britons, and others. Columbus was especially intrigued to see what lands lay in the South American direction, since the King of Portugal had said that there was terra firma in the direction, and was greatly inclined to make discoveries to the southwest. So we're going to skip to the bottom to this other highlighted section. Thus he saw well-made colored scarves or sashes, identical with those of Sierra Leone. But because of the distance, he thought that the two peoples ought not to be in communication. Later, Columbus stated that each American wore scarves which resembled Almanzar's, Moorish sashes. Alright, so here go the white Chinese dude, Sima Quan, Chinese Egyptian origins. I'm showing y'all as far as around the globe as I can find people on accounts outside our race that saying we was there. So this is gonna go everywhere for a while. Sima Quan's description of the topography of the Xia Empire, traditionally regarded as China's founding dynasty, dating from 2070 to 1600 BC. This is what he said. Northwards, the stream is divided and becomes the 9 rivers, wrote Sima Quan in his 1st century historiography, the records of the Grand Historian. Reunited, it forms the opposing river and flows into the sea. In other words, the stream in question wasn't China's famed Yellow River, which flows west to east. There's only one major river in the world which flows northwards, and it is the Nile. And there's a source right there at the bottom. You can type it in, look it up, whatever. So this is some Han Dynasty and Xia Dynasty art from China. You can see how they drove themselves. The Xia Dynasty art kind of reminds me of Nigerian art. So Africa and Egypt. Okay, this kind of talks about the Han Dynasty. The Han Dynasty, 206 BC to 220 AD, is the most associated with these pyramids. They're talking about the pyramids in northern China. However, they arose even earlier. As in Egypt, in China is the spirit road leading to the tomb of the buried emperor or high official. Few know that most Chinese family names are found first in Africa: Wu, Li, Zhao, So, Mao, Yin, Kung, Song, Wang, etc. Few know that today's Chinese arose with the Mongol rulers Genghis and Kublai Khan. Prior to them, the great literature, art, gardens, Chinaware, and palaces were built by and lived in by people of African phenotype, as the official seen on this page, who has been standing on the spirit road of General Lai Ju since under the 3rd Tang ruler. And you see, they knocked his nose off. Everywhere we went in the world, and they seen us, they knocked the noses off. So now you can see in this picture here with these pyramids, they got the rams right in front, just like you would see in Egypt. So it's not a game. It's not a game at all. Alright, my bad. Okay, so on the left we have a painting. This is the description. Prince Michael of Chernigoff, Prince, was passed between fires in accordance with ancient Turco-Mongol tradition. Batu Khan stabbed him to death for his refusal to do obeisance to Genghis Khan's shrine in the pagan ritual. Note that Genghis Khan is depicted as a black man, painting by Russian painter V.S. Smirnov, 1883. So this is a painting of a white man being killed because he didn't want to bow down to the image of black Genghis Khan. Simple as that. Now, if you look into Genghis Khan's biographies, any modern day biography is going to tell you that the way he looked is unclear. There was no depictions of him or whatever. But you go back to 1883 and this dude drew him as a black dude. Simple as that. Painted silk scroll depicting the black-skinned wisdom king Fudu Mao. The immovable one, Fudo, is the cosmic Buddha. He is shown with two attendants, Satake Doji, red, and Kangara Doji, white. This is Japan, Kamakura period, 1200 AD. So the black cosmic Buddha was the Buddha of knowledge. So this is just explaining that Krishna at one point translated to black. Night, blackness, darkness. It's a feminine noun. Alright. So now we're finna get into some more Chinese. So Michael Zhu, TSU Chinese Shang Dynasty Trans-Pacific Script linked to artwork statues origin Olmecs, Mexico. Michael Zhu of TSU has proven the Shang of Bronze Age Dynasty China sailed to the Americas, having helped establish the Olmec civilization, with others who arrived from the east coast, from the east across the Atlantic. The writing style Jiaguan of the Shang Dynasty of circa 1600 BC to 1100 BC is identical to writing found in Olmec territory of southern Mexico and Guatemala, and the statues of jade with oriental subjects also bear testimony that the Shang helped first settle the Americas. Now at the bottom, Betty Meggers of Dartmouth well established the link of the ancient Valdivian pottery of Ecuador to the Jaman of South Japan. Now I want y'all, all of this is very important for when we go on and get into the physical evidence. The genetic link now proven too. Now we're going to go over here. On the left, this skull is a skull of the Shang Dynasty. So the Jaman period. So skull from late Jaman period left versus skull from middle Yayoi Japanese period right. Note that the Jaman skull is obviously and indisputably Negroid. So I looked some research up of where these people could have been, because now you see the prototypical person of that area is that of the skull on the right. So by 350 BC, a Mongol group called the Yayoi, the progenitors of modern Japanese, migrate from China and invade, conquer, and destroy the Jaman civilization. The Jaman people do not exist today. However, it is likely that because of crossbreeding, their genes exist in today's Japanese. Alright. So this is China, Dian Lord, 250 BC. South China, Yunnan, Shizhajan, African lord of the Dian people, 252 BC, 250 AD. The Dian were ancestral to the Han. So you come over here, the Ainus, the African Japanese. You got a statue. I'm just showing you this. The most common is the DNA Ainu in Andaman. They were a brother to the Bushmen of Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, and Angola. Okay. For the complexion of men, they consider black the most beautiful in all the kingdoms of the southern region. It is the same. That's a quote from Nancy Tizzy Zhao. Now these are all Eastern Asian royalty. These are the Khmers. So I'm going to read this quote right under the pictures. Faces of ancient Khmer royal statues representing nearly 700 years of ancient Khmer history. A glance is enough to convince most people that these are portraits of actual persons. The Khmer tradition of realistically depicting their rulers in statues and in bas reliefs on temple walls represents an important difference with Indian tradition, and is one reason the ancient Cambodian artist often surpasses that of the Indian subcontinent. So this is a tradition. This is an art that was brought from somewhere else. And later on, I'm gonna prove it to you. I'm gonna show it to you, and I'm gonna show you how I spread it around and all that shit. So the Khmer men were described by the Chinese as small and black. In modern times, as early as 1923, Harvard University anthropologist Roland Barrage Dixon noted that the ancient Khmers were physically marked by distinctly short stature, dark skin, curly or frizzly hair, broad noses, and thick negroid lips. Alright. So now we finna get some quotes out of a book called The Origin and Evolution of Primitive Man by Albert Churchward, 1912. Okay, so I'm gonna start at right here at page 13. Europe, Asia, North and South America, and Oceania were populated by them. Speaking of the pygmies, if you go down from the pygmy evolution, continue progressively in the following order: Bushman, Masagro Negro, Nilotic Negro, Masi and Mongoloids, and then so-called Aryanist. So what they doing here in this book is they're showing the origins of Africans, but putting white people at the end of the evolutionary stage, and they use that for even legal purposes. When Jim Crow came around, they legally used information like this, like evolution and the out of Africa theory that white people came from Africans and all that shit, to make us a degenerate race scientifically and legally. So continuing on, outside Africa they still exist in New Guinea, New Hebrides, the forests of Bolivia in South America, the mountains of China, the Philippines Islands, the Sakais in the Malay Peninsula, and in northern India. They have been exterminated in Europe, North America, Japan, Australia, and Tasmania, but I have no doubt they are to be found in other places not yet explored. They are not Negroes, but Negrillos or Negretos. Now, this sentence is so crucial because I want you to understand why there are white people with the features that they have. And it exposes this political game that they play. It shows you why, why there's fake white Native Americans, why you can go to China and see the Aborigines are African with these Chinese, quote unquote Chinese features, but you have this white race with the same features. Because when you take over, when they took over these places, like when Rome invaded Asia, the people that stayed did exactly this of this next sentence. We will take their anatomical features first. That's why their DNA go back to Africans. You know what I'm saying? That's the cover up. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you might as well lie and say you from the people you conquered. That way they can never. That way, we always say, well, shit, they came from us. No, the fuck they didn't. And I got another video showing that shit, debunking that Africa. And speaking of that, re-examining the out of Africa theory and the origin of Europeoids, Caucasoids in light of DNA genealogy. This is from a Russian scientist, basically debunking that white people came from black people. All you gotta do is type this in Google. You can look it up. He breaks down the different alleles, haplogroups, all that shit. But I'm not gonna get into it because I had too much time. This is another similar thing. This is an article about his essay that is accepted March 10th, 2012. So that's when science books should have been rewritten, because this has been accepted. It was received January 7th, revised February 4th, accepted March 10th. Okay, so here goes something that's very important. Ancient DNA from the first European farmers in 7,500-year-old Neolithic sites. Now, whenever you see that Neolithic sites, you know they talking about African pygmies from the source that I showed you earlier. So these pygmy farmers had one characteristic mtDNA type, and this type formerly was widespread among Neolithic farmers in Central Europe. These is the people that they say they exterminated. Europeans today have a 150 times lower frequency of this mtDNA type. If you was mtDNA is DNA from the mother. So if we had the same mother, it didn't matter if you exterminated us or not. You still gonna have that DNA inside your lineage. Okay, we're gonna keep moving on. Alright, so this is from the light skin allele of South Asians and Europeans share identity by descent. It got cut off, said identity by descent. So we're going to skip all down to this highlighted section right here. Positive selection among Europeans, however, the latter also shows additional evidence of selection in populations of the Middle East, Central Asia, Pakistan, and North India, but not in South India. Okay, we're going to move over to author summary. We show that the light skin associated allele in South Asians is identical by descent to that found in Europeans. So the shit was passed on. You know, when they moved down, took out the shines and shit, you know. It's a parasite race. And this is why, if you remember back in that book, when they were putting the progressive stages, pygmies to the Masaba, Negro, and all that shit, this is how they tried to justify evolution having various hominids. This is when they got into the DNA, this is how they justified it. So this is from a book called The Journey of Man, A Genetic Odyssey by Spencer Wells. You are more likely to sample extremely divergent genetic lineages within a single African village than you are in the whole rest of the world. The majority of the genetic polymorphisms found in our species are found uniquely in Africans. Europeans, Asians, and Native Americans carry only a small sample of extraordinary diversity that can be found in any African village. Now that is why they can say they came from us. I'm showing you why they can scientifically mislead you into thinking evolution is real. But it's still a theory. There's still gaps, like major gaps in that shit that people don't like to admit. Like all kind of shit. In 2011, DNA from 3 African groups, Biaka Pygmies, San, and Mandinka, was tested and shown to come from a now extinct species that broke away from the modern human lineage over 700,000 years ago. Now this is how they trying to depict us on the left. You know, they have no choice but to try to make us look less than what we were. Ape-like. But chromosome fusion won't allow that to happen. Like, chromosomes are set. Apes have this many chromosomes. Humans have this many chromosomes. Frogs have this many chromosomes. Tadpoles have this many chromosomes. If you could fluctuate the chromosomes the way they can go in and tap into certain DNAs and shit and do the shit that they do, that with that fake ass womb that they have, they can put any fucking fake egg in there with any number of chromosomes and grow whatever the fuck they want to. But because of chromosome fusion, you can't manipulate chromosomes. They haven't got to that point yet. Nature didn't get to that point. You know, so it's never been seen done. They have no way of tracing if it's been done. None of that shit. You know, they don't know where the fuck life came from. And that's just the truth to it. They just need an answer. That's what white people do. They fill gaps with anything just to satisfy. In 2012, another study tested 3 sub-Saharan African populations: Pygmies, Hadza, and Sandawi, and it was found that the ancestors of modern Africans bred with different species of hominids not found in the DNA of non-Africans. So this is why DNA was so diverse, and theirs wasn't shit. Still ain't shit, because we can breed this shit out. It's being done unintentionally. So, African origin of modern humans in East Asia, a tale of 12,000 Y chromosomes. So we'll go down, skip all the bullshit. It originated in Africa about 35,000 to 89,000 years ago. Simple as that. So this is the Native American DNA determiner. If you Google this, I meant to put the source on here. If you Google Native American DNA determiner, it'll be pages where this information comes up. All of it. I'm not going to go through all of it though. I got a couple slides of this. I just want to point out some things. So, we'll start at the top. Some card-carrying Cherokees currently have no Asiatic DNA, Moors. The level of haplogroup T in the Cherokee, 26.9%, approximates the same percentage of 25% of what is found in Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya, Tanzania, and Yemen. Egypt is one of the only lands where T attains a pattern position among the various mitochondrial lineages. Skin color and facial features are primarily like people who live in these countries. Now we'll go down and read this next paragraph. The phylogenetic profile of RM173 supports an ancient migration of Kushites from Africa to Eurasia. This expansion of an African Kushite population probably took place during the Neolithic period. 76 out of 79 Native Americans have R lineage chromosomes belonging to RP25, representing 73% of the Native American population. So that's a lot of DNA going back to Africa. Okay, cranial morphology of early Americans from Lagoa Santa, Brazil. Now we'll go to these highlight sections. The earliest South Americans tend to be more similar to present Australians, Malaysians, and Sub-Saharan Africans. Supporting the hypothesis that the two distinct biological populations could have colonized the New World in pre-Columbus times. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that shit. It'll be different from reading in your head and saying it out loud. And I don't read out loud a lot, so I'll be pronouncing shit wrong. Alright, so Native Americans descend partly from a Native American founding population that carried ancestry more closely related to indigenous Australians, New Guineans, and Ottoman Islanders. Remember, those are those little Japanese pygmies. Than to any present-day Eurasians or Native Americans. So their DNA is more closely to the Africans than any Eurasians, which is our European Asians. That's why they call it as that. You know what I'm saying? Alright, so we're going to get into the Yamasee Indians. Little fun history fact. The Yamasee Indian name is not a name commonly heard by those in today's modern Native American indigenous forms. But with a little research, you will find their story is one that forms some of the most important parts of history in newly made Indian nations. So on the right, you see the great seal of the Yamasee tribe. I'm going to read this next paragraph. The Yamasee Indians have been described as the most fierce warriors of the native tribes encountered. mostly known for the Yamasee War of 1715, where roughly 7% of South Carolina's white citizenry was killed. Now, a lot of people be like, "Oh, well, if the Native Americans were Africans, why they didn't fight for y'all for slavery and all that dumbass shit?" Well, here you go, right here. You know what I'm saying? That's what you wanted to hear. That's what you wanted. So, making the war bloodier than King Philip's War, which is often cited as North America's bloodiest war involving Native Americans. This war and the aftermath of it is said to be cited as a contributing factor to the emergence of the new Indian Confederate nations, such as the Muskogee Creek Seminoles and Catawba, to name a few. What is more interesting to an average history buff is the congressional serial set by United States Government Printing Office 57th Congress First Session, House of Representatives document number 179 reported the Industrial Commission on Agriculture and Agricultural Labor. Washington Government Printing Office, year 1901, page 824, when describing the Yamasee Indians, is quoted as stating, "For a fact of record, the Yamasee Indians were Negroes, what were known afterwards as the fiercest of the Indian tribes of the South." So that's the American government saying that shit, not me. The well-known Yamasee Indians were Africans. Alright, so now we're finna get into a whole different realm of information regarding transatlantic movement, migration, contact, trade, all that shit, using physical evidence. So right now we're going to do plants. So this is the Sino-Platonic Papers, written in April 2004, scientific evidence for pre-Columbian transoceanic voyages. Now, if your master teachers haven't showed you this, then they need to broaden their research the way I have. Alright. Consul Republic. That's us. Pineapples in India. So I'm finna read this. Figure 8. Right here. Where my mouse at? Where my mouse? Right here. Right here. You can see the pineapple. That's what this is. This is a pineapple. Look like they tried to kind of break it off like they always do, but this is a fucking pineapple. So, Ananas comosus, the pineapple, is depicted at a cave temple at Udagiri, India, dated ca. the 5th century AD. Pineapples are thought to have originated in Brazil and Paraguay in South America. They were first, quote-unquote, discovered by Europeans in 1493 on the Caribbean island known as Guadeloupe. So this is in India. It's a fucking pineapple. So remember earlier we already had connections and references from people in Asia coming to Mexico. So when Christopher Columbus and others discoverers brought pineapples back to Europe, attempts were made to cultivate the sweet prized fruit until it was realized that the fruit's need for a tropical climate inhibited its ability to flourish outside of the tropics. Alright, we're gonna keep going. This when the shit gets deep. So here goes the pineapple in Egypt. That's what that is. And a lot of y'all gonna be like, "Oh, there ain't no pineapple, it's not shaped like a pineapple." A lot of people gonna say it's corn, which is still beneficial to the case because maize originated in Mexico, South America, shit like that. So, but that's a pineapple. I'm gonna show you why the pineapple looks like this. Now, these are typical hybrid fruit showing elongated upper part of fruit and the small crown. Ruler is 15 inches. Now, when pineapples are grown in harsher conditions outside of the tropics, they, for some reason, they grow stretched out like that. So these are pineapples here. This is the pineapples you see on this table. You see? You see? You see? All right. So, this is Studevant's notes on edible plants. Edward Louis Studevant was an American agronomist and botanist who wrote Studevant's Edible Plants of the World. An enormously prolific author, he was considered one of the giants of American agriculture science in his own time. So this is what this comes out of. This is an excerpt out of his shit regarding these pineapples. This is 1919. Okay. Okay. Acosta, I'm starting at the beginning of the paragraph. Acosta states that the ananas was carried from Santa Cruz in Brazil to the West Indies, and this to the East Indies in China, but he does not pretend by this that pineapples were not to be found out of Brazil. This is the white man saying that pineapples were not to be found outside of Brazil, for he describes an idol in Mexico, Vitzili Potzili, as having in his left hand a white target with the figures of 5 pineapples made of white feathers set in a cross. Stephens at Tulum on the coast of Yucatan found what seemed intended to represent a pineapple among the stucco ornaments of a ruin. We do not know what to make of Wilkinson's statement for one instance of the pineapple in glazed pottery being among the remains from ancient Egypt. Alright, that was page 48. We're going to skip down to page 49. Alright. So, of the pineapples as existing upon the west coast of Africa, but he admits its American origin. That's enough. We can keep going. So this is 7th or 6th century BCE, a painting of a pineapple in Pompey's house of Ephebi. Pompeii was a Roman city whose art, that's supposed to say art, it's a typo, was heavily influenced by Egyptian culture. And you see right there on the table a fucking pineapple that's not even supposed to be there, mind you. Later, they couldn't even grow them in Europe. So they was going to Egypt or somewhere nearby to go get those pineapples. Alright, so this has to do with the discovery of cocoa. Yeah. So this is back to the Sino-Platonic papers. The discovery of cocoa in Egypt was even more shocking. In western South America, its leaves have been chewed for its chemical effects for more than 4,000 years. Although outside the Andean area where it is grown, there is little evidence for consuming it. By what route the plant reached Egypt is unclear. Attempts to explain how its chemical signature came to appear in the Egyptian mummies without involving New World contacts seem outlandish. So ain't no black folks writing this shit. I mean, I ain't being Afrocentrically biased, am I? You know what I'm saying? About as strange as cocoa's use in the Near East as the fact that Peruvian mummies dating to before AD 200 have been found to contain both physiologically processed residues of tobacco and cocoa, as well as hashish, cannabis sativa. Hashish is an ancient in the old world. Is an ancient. Oh, okay, I get it now. Thought I read this shit wrong. So, despite the discomfort caused by having a paradigm upset, we must accept the evidence is convincing for ingesting tobacco, cocoa, and hashish, at least in Egypt and in Indian South America by the beginning of the first millennia BC. The only explanations for that distribution involved voyages across the ocean. That's not my words. That's not an African man's words. That's their word. Alright. Still in the papers. This is talking about tobacco. We're going to go straight to the sentence right above the highlighted section. In 1992, physical scientist in Germany used sophisticated instrumentation to examine 9 Egyptian mummies in order to learn about the ancient use of hallucinogenic or narcotic substances. They found chemical residues of tobacco, cocaine, and hashish in the hair, soft tissue, skin, and bones of 8 of the 9 mummies, including metabolically processed derivatives of the drugs, signifying that the drugs were ingested while the subjects were alive. Cocaine and hashish, but not tobacco, were found in the 9th mummy. So the 9th mummy didn't fuck with squares. You know what I'm saying? He didn't fuck with tobacco. The historical dates of the mummies range from 1070 BC to AD 395. The historical dates of these mummies they examined with weed, cocoa, and tobacco range from 1070 BC to AD 395, indicating that the plants yielding the drugs were apparently continuously available, at least to Egyptian royalty, for over 1400 years. I'm going to the sunflower. Now, the sunflowers originate in North America. Now, this is sculpture of Nandi, the mythological bull associated with Shiva, bears this model sunflower between its ear and horn. Sunflowers at several positions on bulls' figures at Shiva temples mark sight lines to the sun rising on the horizon on key days in the calendar. Here at temple at Halibid, Karnataka, India, a live sunflower is juxtaposed with the sculpted stone. The notch made by the sunflower in the sculpture allows the illumination of Shiva for a few minutes at dawn on the equinox. Alright, so now we're finna get into the references at the bottom. I'm not gonna get too deep into this. Basically, the sweet potato, it didn't originate in India, but it was found in a lot of places that it does originate in Asia. In America, researchers have found a genetic smoking gun that proves that the root vegetable made it all the way to Polynesia from the Andes nearly 400 years before Inca gold was a twinkle in Ferdinand and Isabella's eyes. So like 400 years before they started exploring and fucking shit up, the sweet potato from Asia had already been, dispersed around and shit. Alright, so we're finna get into what my homeboy, he called this nitpick evidence, but I mean, it is what it is. So, the Watson reported on the ritual consumption of fly argot or Amanita muscara mushrooms among Siberian and Northern Asian peoples, suggesting that the antiquity of an ancient mushroom culture Stone Age times. Above are Paleolithic petrographs of the Chukotka region of northeastern Siberia depicting sea vessels and mushroom-headed figures. So I want y'all to remember the mushroom-headed figures. Even right here, the little earrings coming off that look like little mushrooms and shit. Look at the style of the boat. Look at the mushroom-headed people. Okay, remember all this. Even right here, remember this mushroom-headed dude right here. Remember all of this. Okay. Quoting Maya archaeologist Stefan de Borrigi. The little red-topped mushroom with white polka dots occur frequently in Hungarian folktales, usually in connection with little dwarfs who live under them. So here we go. Got this is the mushroom, and this is the little dwarf that live under him. Above is a figurine from Nayarit, western Mexico, dated 100 CE, depicting a little person sitting under a Amanita muscara mushroom. All right. So, Spanish chroniclers recorded that the Aztecs drank or ate the mushrooms to induce hallucinatory trances and dreams during which they saw colored visions of jaguars, birds, snakes, and little gnome-like creatures. Spanish chronicler Fray Diego Duran reported that mushrooms were eaten on the occasion of the accession of Moctezuma II to the throne, the famous emperor and high priest of the Aztecs in the year 1502. Above is a late classic period Maya figure of a bearded gnome-like figure wearing an upside down hat as a mushroom. Alright. Now these are two miniature mushroom stones that found buried together in the Maya tomb. Now what this little bowl thing is right here, this is what they would use to crush the mushroom up. Now look at this. This looks like the one from earlier. I want y'all to remember those two, okay? Now here goes some of the mushroom dudes they found. These are some more Maya mushroom heads. Alright. So, above on the left is a bearded effigy mushroom stone from Guatemala. So this one's from Guatemala. Now notice the ear. This is the same ear print that you will see on the statues on Easter Island. Now they be trying to say these are fezzes on these Easter Island statues' heads, but that big round circle stone, I might have a picture of them, sitting on top of the head with the smaller stone sitting in the middle on top, those are upside down mushrooms. Now if you look right here at the bottom, you got the Easter Island from the front, his face. This is the base of the mushroom, this is the stem, and this is the canopy. You can overlay this mushroom to the right of it, right on top, boom. And that's the face. So this is the Olmec mushroom with the Easter Island face on the back. Alright. Okay. So this is out of the Veda script. We have drunk the soma and become immortal. We have attained the light and found the gods. Here you can see the mushrooms in their hands, in their hands, in their hands, in their hands. That's all in India. Here it is right here. Soma mushroom. Now, this is important to remember, this description. Above are female fertility figurines from India, Harappa, Indus Valley Civilization, 2600-1900 BCE, that encode the Amanita muscara mushroom, hidden in plain sight in the headdress of the earth goddess, named Maya. So this is in India, the mushrooms in the head goddess that's named Maya. So, above on the lower left is a late classic Maya figurine, photographed by Justin Kerr. The figurine wears a headdress encoded with the Amanita mushroom. So here it is right here. So we go back to India. Just like in the Maya, we got a bunch of dudes standing under mushrooms. As the story goes, the Buddha becomes enlightened while sitting under the Budai tree. The word Budai, which means enlightenment, is, I believe, a metaphorical reference to the sacred mushrooms in the tree of life or tree of knowledge. It should be noted that Buddha eventually reaches enlightenment or nirvana under this tree, but only after he dies from eating a mushroom. Now, you see it right here in his ear in Mexico. You go back to India, right there in the ear, upside down, just like in those cave paintings I showed you, just like in the petroglyphs. Alright? Now, also known as the master, the god Tlaloc shared the same temple as Kodazal. Hold on, I gotta call y'all. Okay. I'm bad, take that phone call. We shall continue. Alright, so these is India on the left. See the she's holding the mushroom right here above her head. He's holding it. He's holding it. This is back in India on the right. Alright. Alright, so on the left is the Olmec whistle that most likely comes from the San Lorenzo phase of Olmec culture, 1200 to 400 BCE. So on the right you have an Egyptian sandstone carving, 18th dynasty. Around that time frame that we had transatlantic contact with the mushroom, not the mushrooms, tobacco, cocoa, and weed, depicting Pharaoh Akhenaten and his wife Queen Nefertiti in profile, with hands raised in the air to venerate to what appear to be two Amanita mushrooms. Alright, so now I want you to look at these symbols on top. This is the flower from which the mushroom grows. Like it grows around the flower and shit like that. The mushroom. So, this particular petrograph portrays a deity on the left crowned with a symbol that I propose is a New World version of the Old World flower emblem. I believe that a flower symbol was intentionally encoded in the sky deity's head to represent a trinity. That's what he believed. I don't believe that shit. I just think they did things to show people where they from, where they been, and who they trading with. It's easier than writing a script, because if you never seen the script, who gonna understand it? Everybody can look at a picture. The picture says 1,000 words without an alphabet. So here you have all the symbols. See the symbol on top of his head? Here it is in India. A couple other places outside that area. Here it is in Maya. Now in the Mayan scripts, the seas and the currents were seen as serpents, and even in some of the words, it might show it later, that the words for water and serpent and all that shit, they're pretty similar. So here you can see this guy sitting on a boat. You have this serpent current, and it's taking you to where this is. You see? So a picture says 1,000 words. I don't even have to read that description at the bottom. You see on top of his head? This is a Sumerian clay tablet that portrays the goddess Inanna. There it goes again. Sumerian. Here it goes in the Olmec. The Sep has the maze right here. Come right back to India. Notice the swastikas right here on the footprints of Buddha. And here goes that maze. Maze that people are trying to say is a pine cone, like they picking the pineal gland. That's bullshit. It's maze. It's fucking corn. Alright, so linguistic evidence that the Mayans were from Ceylon. Ceylon is an island outside of South India. So here we have the similarities between Sumeria and Mexico. So we have Inan, mother. Non-sin, revered mother. Tu non-sin, changeable forms of revered mother. Non-sin, no-non-sin. See, this is in Sumeria, this is Mexico. These are words that are pretty much the same. Even Ishtar, the moon goddess, Ishtak, white princess moon goddess, Malaya, destined to be garlanded with flowers, Maria, her Christian name, also of Hindu variation. So, Seren, a name of Ceylon, some Mayan Romans in El Salvador are called Seren. That's at the bottom. So there's a lot of linguistic correlations that we're going to find that are mostly, I would call them loan words through trade and travel. So this is from a book, from probably the only black reference I use in this video, The first Americans were Africans, written by David M. Hotel. Okay, I'm going to read this excerpt out of the book. The next example brings us full circle with the Algonquin. It identifies an Egyptian-Algonquin relationship. Part of the language of the Micmac is derived from the ancient Egyptian language. Another item that early Algonquin had in common with the Egyptians and early peoples of the Nile Valley, as well as the Picts of Britain, is that they were short and dark complexioned. The Micmac were found to be shorter than their neighbors, and both had dark complexions. We were always taught that Native Americans were great hunters, but they did not farm, nor could they read or write. None of this was true. French Catholic priest Pierre Milliard, in this 18th century, wrote a 450-page book in Micmac hieroglyphics in 1767 AD. I've been trying to find this shit. The Spanish said he was one of the priests, Richelieu, whatever the fuck his name is, sent to quote-unquote civilize the Indians. 61 years later, after the priest published his book, the French historian Champollion Figeac, also the very first French Egyptologist in 1839 AD, published his first book on the decipherment of each Egyptian hieroglyphics. What this means is Milliard wrote his book 61 years before Champollion's book was published. Consequently, Milliard could not have copied the Egyptian script. His book had to be an original. Now, here goes this is the main area of Micmac tribe is Maine, and it goes up into Canada. Ancient Micmac, these are similar glyphs, just a few. And this is a Micmac petroglyph of a boat. And I'm going to show you a similar boat like that later on. In the Micmac script, there were hundreds of different hieroglyph signs, a considerable portion of which are clearly derived from or even identical with ancient Egyptian or their hieratic equivalents. He also says he has met older people among the Indians at Old Town, Maine, who remember a time when writing was inscribed vertically and also horizontally. Alright, so these are cartouches or shims. The Micmacs and the Egyptians shared this also, that they wrote names in the cartouche. So here's the ancient Maya hieratic alphabet according to mural inscriptions, compared to the ancient hieratic alphabet according to Champollion. So you can see all the similarities here. Similarities. Here we have English, Nahatal, and Egyptian. You can see house, Kali, Ka. Read with something you needed to build a boat. That's why I say some of these seem like loan words. Akatal, Akat. Serpent, Kota, Kut. Canoe, Akal, Akat. You can look at Mayan, Ahu, time. Same pronunciation for gods, Baal, in the air, flower. Okay, now back to this Olmec and Shane. Here we have more linguistic evidence. Here's the Shane next to the Olmec, and you can see the similarities in the scripts. It's like all they did was the Olmec kind of compressed it, the script. This at the bottom it says this jade celt is among those excavated at La Venta, Tabasco, Mexico in 1955 and attributed to the Olmec. The striking similarities between the Olmec and Chinese Shang dynasty symbols suggest that the Chinese may have traveled to the Americas by boat well before the early 19th century. A 2009 published essay from the Light Words from the Dark Continent, a collection of essays by Nibs Ra and Manu Aman, offers insight to early Chinese civilizations. It states that the first documented governance in China was headed by the Shang or Chang dynasty in 1500 to 1000 BC. King Tang or Ta, founder of the Shang dynasty, was of African descent. The Shang were also called Nakai, which literally means black Na and mankind. King Tang in the Shang dynasty were responsible for unifying China to form their first civilization. That's similar to what happened in what's now called Egypt when Kemet came together. So here we have pottery at the top from China and Guatemala, and some kind of table, shield, crest from China and Guatemala at the bottom. I'll send email right quick. Okay. Now, a correlation also exists between the ancient written language of Easter Island and that of Indus Valley, which not only lie 13,000 miles apart on opposite sides of the planet, but also 2,100 years apart in time with no overlap. The Easter Island civilization arising that many years later after the Indus Valley civilization. Between these two written languages, they share 174 identical or virtually identical glyphs out of a combined total of 745, 226 Indus Valley signs and their variations, and 519 Easter Island signs with many more variants. Both are written in the same peculiar manner, with alternate lines of script running in opposite directions. There is no indication of either language showing any signs of development over time, and seem to have appeared already fully developed in both locations. The only way to account for this is that they both stem from a single earlier civilization. So here's the Siva from Easter Island. Here's the Siva from Mohenjo, India. Here on the far left, you can see some of the similarities that they were speaking of. Here's a few more. You want to take a longer look, you can pause and check it out. Alright, so here goes the Chinese Shang script compared to Indus Valley seal. So this is the script right here, the Indus Valley seal right here, that's usually oriented. Now this is the Shang right here. See sequencing the same in the earliest Chinese, meaning year of celebration. So you can see that was possibly a loan word also. Here are mixed inscriptions in from pottery, Indus Valley, Egyptian, Demotic. You can see the similarities even on the right inscription, megalithic, Indus Valley, Egyptian. The Mangdig script, we're going to talk about that too. You can see the similarities through all these. Here we have the Maya and Naga similar counting system. Now, if you want longer looks at these, you have to pause, check it out, because I really want to get through this. Alright, so Flora Vista is a census-designated place in San Juan County, New Mexico, United States. The elephant slabs tell us that Flora Vista was an arid region. We learned that the Malayans at Flora Vista found the Sama or elephants as a source of food because many of them died due to the heat. The author of the elephant slab makes it clear that the Malayans cultivated ka or maize in the Mende language. It also tells us that the Malayans built a family habitation. So you see, this was found in New Mexico, and it has the Mende language on it, telling us that the elephants were dying off, so they was easy prey. So here it is, the transliteration. At the bottom, there's sources for this article and everything. Now this basically is the macro of what I just showed you. And I'm not gonna get into it because I don't want to spend a lot of time. Okay. So now we're going to get into more culturized visuals. So here we have the Aztec gambling game Patoli compared to Pachis, played by Shiva and Parvati. Here we have the creation myth in Mesopotamia. I mean not Mesopotamia, Mesoamerica in North Africa, in Egypt. So you can see the similarities. Let me read the quote on top. In Chiapas, Bonampak in southeast Mexico is found the late classic 1600 AD, 900 AD creation myth, the Popol Vuh, with features found in North African, i.e. Egyptian creation myth. The Popol Vuh uses parodic anthropomorphism, upper panel, as found in New Kingdom, Egypt, lower panel. The panels are similar in many instances as with seated, engaged animals, jackal-like animals, small animal preceding large. Now if you look very closely at this, you'll see a lot of similarities in everything. So, like I said, you want a longer look, pause and check it out. So I'm just showing you this is that chess that they was playing on the other one. Okay, back to these elephants that supposedly died out like 300,000 years ago, but that Mandig slide, not 300, probably like, I think, yeah, it might have been around 300. Don't quote me on that though. But here you have an Olmec who it's a clay figurine of an elephant who some people try to pass as a woolly mammoth, but it obviously doesn't have the body structure of a woolly mammoth. That's like a regular ass African elephant. So, they say elephants disappeared from the Americas at the end of the Ice Age, 10,000 BC. So yeah, about 13,000 years ago. This is a stone sculpture of the elephant-headed Hindu deity Ganesh, the remover of obstacles. It is from the pre-Angkor period of Cambodia, dating to 7th century AD. Now you see the elephants, okay? Now this is Balinese in India. See the elephant? Now this is Mayan. Elephants should not be here. You know, you either got to push the timeline back or admit transatlantic contact. Alright, so this is kind of hard to see at the top right here. This top part. Hold on, mouse set. Covering up the mouse. Okay, so this top part right here, these are two dudes riding elephants. There go a dude sitting right here at the head. They're riding on elephants. That's what this is at the bottom. That's the actual stone statue. It was just a bad picture. Right below it, you see the elephant right here. Now this is all Mayan. Right here. Now we go over here to Oaxaca, Mexico. And you see the elephant right here. See the tusk? That's the tusk right there. That's what this is over here. With like some kind of headdress or some shit on it. So let's read what this excerpt says. Among the most enigmatic pre-Columbian glyphs in Mesoamerica are the elephant images on Stela B at Copan. There are two of them carved into the upper corners of the stone, and only the heads and trunks are represented. When they were first discovered and copied over 150 years ago, there was a human figure riding on top of one of the elephants, looking much like an Indian mahout or elephant driver. This image has subsequently been broken or perhaps eroded off, The reason the elephants are so enigmatic is because they are not supposed to have existed in America, since their extinction came some 10,000 years ago, when either human hunters or changing environments are believed to have caused their demise. Alright, so now we're finna get into some Mayan scrolls, not Mayan looking, these are Mayan scrolls. Now I want to show y'all how these early Mayans depicted themselves, and it's not like how you commonly see it. Here you go, right here. Look at this dude. You know, he probably just like a little tobacco stick, frizzy nappy hair, goatee, earrings, regular dude. He got his little Muslim hat on, smoking a square as well. You know what I'm saying? He posted up watching the dope. Go right down to the bottom. You have a Mayan vase. This is a vase stretched out, wearing a Moorish turban. So here you go, right here on his head, you got a turban. So I just wanted to show you this headpiece and the goatee. They tried to, you know, get rid of it from the fifth dynasty. You go back to this headpiece right here. Okay, so here we got Kemet, Ethiopia, and Mexico. I even got a tablet slide right here to show y'all, you know what I'm saying, what they was talking about earlier with these animal garments around, the leopard print. So I have this excerpt of Sacred Mysteries Among the Mayas and the Quiches 11,500 years ago, their relation to the sacred mysteries of ancient Greece, Chaldea, and India, Freemasonry. So, the skin of a leopard was worn as a mantle over the ceremonial dress of his priests. Besides, when represented as a king of the Amenti of the West, the symbol of Osiris was always a crouching leopard with an open eye over it. We must not lose sight that the fact that the leopard's skin worn by Nimrod and Bacchus was a sacred appendage to the mysteries. It was used in the Eleusinian as well as the Egyptian mysteries instituted in honor of Osiris. It is mentioned in the earliest speculations by the Brahmins on the meaning of their sacrificial prayers, and is used in the Agnishtoma, the initiation rites of the Soma mysteries. Now we just got finished going through the Soma mushrooms, so you know I told y'all all this information ties in. Vultures are among the most common symbols featured in Egyptian headdresses. A number of vulture species lived in ancient Egypt, so the bird was a recognizable image. In Egyptian mythology, vultures were not just scavenging birds, but symbols of femininity and maternal protection. So this quote on the right comes out that same book of mysteries. Her headgear as a goddess was a vulture. That bird was her totem and the particular type of maternity. Isis was also often called the great mother goddess Mu. A word certainly suggestive of the name. Mu, sister wife of Ko and queen of Chichen, as the vulture of the Macaw. It must not be forgotten that one of the titles of Isis was the royal wife and sister. So you can see the similarities in goddesses within the Maya and the Egyptian. Isis having a whole separate name, Mu, and the Mayan deity having the name Mu, and both of them having the same royal position as a sister wife or royal wife and sister, which is not fucking incest. It's because they parents had consorts. Like if you had a wife, you had a female consort to pass down the royal line. Like she might have came from a royal family, so y'all would have a baby. Let's say she had a daughter. Your consort had a daughter that might end up marrying one of your other sons. So that is your son's sister wife. They not directly blood, but they family. That's how that shit works. So here are Shawaptis. You probably seen these in Suicide Squad. The old girl was in El Salvador. She broke it open and got possessed by enchantress. That's what these are. They are regularly made in Egypt, but they've been found in New Mexico, El Salvador, Illinois, shit like that. So it is a figurine placed in an ancient Egyptian tomb to serve as a slave for the soul or as a substitute for the soul in performing forced labor. So here goes some more. This is the magazine that it was in, and these are where they were found: Mexico, Northern Illinois. Alright, so this is the wood spirit hand issuing from the tree trunk offering water. This is something that's in Egyptian custom and in India custom. Now, I know a lot of Hebrews are not going to like this, but I had to tie it in. Anybody want to call my phone there? You have to wait a second. Alright, so inscribed on the sarcophagus of y'all know that's Ajam. Inscribed curse on the sarcophagus of King Aram displays earliest use of Phoenician alphabet. The sarcophagus of King Aram, spelled also Aram, is an incredible monument that was unearthed in Lebanon. As its name suggests, the sarcophagus belonged to a king by the name of Aram, who was a ruler of the ancient Phoenician city of Byblos, as the Greeks called it, and is now Jubil, whatever. This sarcophagus is notable for its bas reliefs and, more importantly, its inscription. The engraved curse is said to be the earliest known example of the fully developed form of the Phoenician language, hence its great significance. So this is the Egyptian sarcophagus with the early formed developed form, the fully developed form of the Phoenician alphabet. So here over here you can see parent systems of the Phoenician alphabet. Go down. Parent systems, Egyptian hieroglyphics. That's enough said, okay? That's important for where we going with this. Now here goes another one. The sarcophagus dates to 5th century BC. Tabnet, the man who was buried inside it, was a priest of Astarte and ruler of Sidon. He was an influential king in the period when Egypt was ruled by the 26th dynasty. The pharaohs of Egypt were already legendary, and they inspired many of the rulers. Civilizations like the Phoenicians were powerful and rich through trade, and they likely received many cultural ideas from abroad. However, their story still consists many gaps for modern researchers. The inscriptions carved on the sarcophagus are fascinating for the combination of Egyptian hieroglyphics and Phoenician script. This kind of writing was created at the beginning of the 5th century. It wasn't in use for a long time, so any discovery of this unusual text is considered precious. The inscription on the sarcophagus says, according to translation by George Rawlinson, I, Tabnet, priest of Astaroth and king of Sidon, lying in this tomb, say I adjure every man, when thou shalt come upon this sarcophagus, open not my chamber, and trouble me not, for there is not with me aught of silver, nor is there with me aught of gold. There is not with me anything of spoil, but only I myself who lie in this sarcophagus. Open not my chamber, and trouble me not, for it would be an abomination in the sight of Astarte to do such an act. And if thou shouldst open my chamber and trouble me, mayest thou have no prosperity all thy life under the sun, and no resting place with the departed. They already knew some white people was gonna fuck with the shit. We ain't gonna fuck with it. So now we shall know prosperity under the sun as well for movement. So here is another one. A Phoenician king of Sidon, the son of King Tabnet, the sarcophagus we just looked at, was created in the early 5th century BCE. It was unearthed in 1855 at a site near Sidon and is now in the Louvre. The sarcophagus was likely created in Egypt being carved from amphibolite from Wadi Hamamat. The inscription states that the Lord of Kings granted the Sidonian kings territory in the land of Israel. The inscription is the first discovered in the Phoenician language from the area known as Phoenicia. A sarcophagus that was made in Egypt is the first discovered in the Phoenician language from the area known as Phoenicia. The sarcophagus bears a 22-line inscription known as KAI 14, written in the Phoenician Canaanite language and the Phoenician alphabet. The inscription identifies the king inside and warns people not to disturb his repose. The language used in the inscription is a Canaanite dialect mutually intelligible with biblical Hebrew. So y'all can stop all the beef. Y'all are one big family, and they wrote that book to turn y'all against each other. Alright, so here we have that royal outfit again with the Mayan. But the similarities between this Mayan, Egyptian, and Aztec are the positions that they're holding their prisoners in. This is called the smiting of the enemy. It is for POWs, people of treason, and all kind of stuff. So you can see how this made its way. That's not a similarity. So here we have a Phoenician artifact with the same thing. It's the same thing. This isn't coincidence. Mayan and my Egyptian and Olmec. This is Egyptian and Olmec as well. You see the headdress? It's Egyptian and Olmec as well. And this is Egyptian and Mayan. You see the prayer positions? They just compacted the Mayan. But that's what that is. It's a prayer stone. It's a prayer sculpture. Now this is hard to see. This is the Mayan world tree to the Mohenjo-Daro world tree. Now I'm gonna start off on the Mayan side. Now if you go where the mouse is, where I got the mouse, this is a serpent head. The serpent connects to the tree right here, comes down. This is his mouth, his eye, his nose. This is the face right here. This is a horn that comes off his forehead and stretches off all the way over here. Same over here. See the mouth, little tongue even coming out, eyes, nose, horn, long horn coming off this tree. This is a tree. It's not a fucking spaceship like ancient aliens say. This is a sun god about to descend into the underworld on his platform. So right here on this Indian tree, you got the chimeras, the same thing. This serpent coming off this tree. Face, nose, horn. Face, nose, horn. Face, nose, horn. Alright. Now you can see the similarities in this twisted snake around the stick shit. Now this is the neck braces. You can see in South Africa, in South Peru, they doing the same thing. Even the big gauges in the ears. Now this is the stance of Ptah. This is in Peru. This is in Angkor Wat in India. Now this is not a coincidence that their hands are even in the same positions. They got their hands in the same formation. This is Tahuti in the Maya. It's not a coincidence. Now this is the Aztec calendar imposed over the zodiac of Dendera. Now I want to show y'all that they was even using the same calendar systems. So you go where my mouse is on the Aztec, you get this little V. Now you see it's two lines that create this V with a curl. Now you come down here, you got two deities down here. This is how they was counting. Now you see right here, it's been shortened. You only got one deity. Everywhere you got this big V is two. Everywhere you got this one V is one. Everybody got this. This is lined up perfectly. So you can see they was using the same counting measurement with just a different depiction. So this is Zapotec style, 300 BC to AD 700. This is a part of that Shang dynasty. You see it? You see the headdress? You see it? The most important thing is to look at his facial features and then look at this symbol on his chest. Now we go over here to the 11th dynasty. Look at his facial features, the eyes, and look at him with the necklace going down to the same point of his chest. It's not a coincidence. Here we got Mochi. These is in Mississippi. These are Native American pottery in Mississippi. Oh, I'm sorry. This is in Peru. I'm sorry. Mochi is in Peru. I got them confused with another tribe. But regardless, these are obviously African, pre-Columbus. So again, this is in Peru. Kemet. The African features of Kemet. Now here you got the Buddha sitting on a turtle. What the Mayan doing? Sitting on a turtle. So they both have stories that's similar to the churning of milk. Now you should look up this story. Both these stories are the same, but I'm sitting on like a big turtle, and you got people on each side pulling it, and it's causing the universe and shit to turn. So here we have the Maya and this Hindu statue, Mayan and Hindu statue, with these similar hand preferences. Now you see she got the mushrooms in her hand. You can see the little ball on top and everything. See the ball on top? He got them in his ears. See the ball right there? He got them in his ears. She got them in the hand. Now these are the Mississippians that I confused earlier. You can see why I confused the face. Now these lines are a sign of adulthood in places in Central Africa. So these are in Mississippi and northeast Arkansas. 1000 AD. This one 800 to 1600 AD. So here we have this stance. Aztec, India, and Kemet. And you got Tahuti down here doing this. Now this is a stance you probably see a lot on Egyptian hieroglyphs, petroglyphs, or any kind of statues. You probably see it a lot. Now, list of common Egyptian mudras. Now this is the adoration for the sun. Hold the hands in front of, slightly above or just below level of the face, fingers upward, palms facing outward. The gesture can be made while standing or kneeling. The ape is performing his first pose of sun salutation. So that's what Tahuti's doing in this, praising the sun. Every morning when the sun used to rise, they say the baboons would raise their hands to block the sun's rays from blinding them. And it looked like they was praising the sun. Alright, so here we have Shemai, Sin, and Anana, Sumerian deities on Mayan art. You can see them right here. Same exact way. Same exact way. Barely any variation to it. Here you have a Mayan counting system in the Sahara petroglyphs. You see it right here? It's the same as the Mayan counting system. Now you got Bes, Egypt, South America. Now these are other dwarfs in the Olmec, and here in the Hindu Buddhist temple. And then at the bottom you got Bes on the support beams of a temple in Egypt. So here goes the Olmec statue on the left without the helmet on. You see the hair, you see the hairline, you see the nose, you see the lips. Now, a lot of scholars would tell y'all, I heard Sarah Sudan said, he said one time that, oh, in Mexico is the only place in the world where you're going to find heads like these. And I know he said it with good intent, but he was wrong. You can find heads like those in India. As for this split picture I'm showing you right here, the lips, the nose, the only difference is that the eyes is closed on the one in India. So here goes a statue from Easter Island that a lot of people haven't seen. This is the one that people don't show, and he's actually, I think I was reading in the book that he's actually facing back towards Africa, like that's where I came from. A lot of them are, there's also some along the shores facing out towards the sea. Now, another very controversial discovery ignored by most scholars and never noticed by alternative researchers is the common mistake we find in many statues and depictions in Mesoamerica, in Egypt, and in Mesopotamia. People or gods depicted with left hands. That's a little nitpick, but still. Now here are these stone balls you would see in Mesopotamia holding, like they'll be holding them in statues and shit. You get those same ones in Mesoamerica. Here are these little buckets. Now, ceramic wheel toy from the Chanhu Daro Indus Valley civilization. Now in the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston, Massachusetts. Now this is a late classic period Gulf Coast region of Mexico ceramic jaguar on wheels, now in the Ethnologist Museum of Berlin. So you see how this was found in India, they sent this to Massachusetts. This was found in Mexico, they sent it to Berlin. They couldn't let them be too close together. You know, somebody gonna notice that shit. So here is a complex ritual and ideology shared by Mesoamerica and the ancient Near East. Now you see, this is the anointing. You see them pouring the unks in the form of water over his head. See, these deities are doing the same thing. They're doing the same thing. And these are bird deities. That's why their claws look like that. That's why their feet look like claws. So they pouring this over this dude with two left hands again, mind you. Now this is Egyptian, obviously. Now here it goes in the Aztec. You see how it's the same ideology with variation, with a cultural variation. Here goes the offering of self, the offering of truth. Now this is at the bottom, the stone version of the Mayan is hard to see, but the drawing, he's offering himself up to what is the sun god over here, and this is the same that Seti the First is doing over here, is offering himself to Osiris, who's sitting in a chair in front of him. He's just cut off. And this is Peru, this is Egypt, the hairdressers, Krishna and Heru. This is man, woman, and child, the Holy Trinity, Solomon Island, and Mayan and Egyptian. This is something that we took everywhere. You know, you read that earlier that the Mande people they created a family habitat. That's what it was about, family. Now this is pre-Inca necklace. This is Egyptian. You can see it's basically the same. Pre-Inca Egyptian architecture. Here you got where the metal clamps that went into the stone created the same way. Kumapuku, Tiwanaku, Egypt. Even the laying and setting of stones cut precisely the same way. The three-door phenomenon. Here it is again. Now these serpents are at the bottom of the stairs. These serpents right here that you see in pictures of, they're at the bottom of these stepways. So it shows that it gives you the illusion of them traveling down. So what you get here is the same thing in Egypt at the Temple of Hapsu. A particular entrance is the Temple of Hatshepsut, which is entered by passing up a long sloping ramp with stairs up the center and stone banisters with a serpent running from top to bottom, ending at the bottom in a bird's body. So here you have the winged serpent in Egypt. You have the winged serpent out there. Here goes some more serpent imagery. Mayan, Hindu, Egyptian. Here it goes again. Winged serpent imagery. Olmec, Aztec, Mayan, Egypt at the bottom. Now here go pre-Incan Egyptian, the symmetrical art. If you've seen my other videos, y'all are gonna see notice some of this is reused. You got the pre-Incan and Egyptian Tekken. Now you can notice the serpent symbolism above the doorways. Small cultural things like this. Now you got the Egyptian god Happy, and you got the Mayan god. You see how they sitting in those serpents like that? Same thing, cultural variation. That's it. Alright, so now we're finna get into these boats. Now I told y'all to remember the boat from earlier, the Micmac boat, and the boat from when we were looking at the mushroom shit. So here are 3,800-year-old tableau of Egyptian boats discovered. Now it's like 300 boats carved into this. They don't know why. They say they don't know why. We know why, because they was doing what they always doing, telling us what they had, what they was doing. They had a fucking navy, and it's recorded that, you know, several Egyptian royalties had very powerful and exploring navies. Now this is a relief depicting a Phoenician ship. Now remember, the Phoenician culture is basically a break off of Egyptian culture. Now, this is a picture of a boat in India. I want y'all to look at how these boats are made. This is Indus Valley seal. It's another Indian boat. So you see this Indus Valley seal boat is made just like this Egyptian boat right here at the bottom right. You see that? I got the hood in the middle. See how I got the hood in the middle? People got like a bird on each side. Just saying. Now you can look at this. Now this is 20,000 years old. Look it up. This is a boat carving in Wadu Abu Siberia, Egypt. 20,000 years old. And you see that little hood in the middle? It's nothing new. It's a Syrian relief of a Phoenician ship. Now I want y'all to realize something. Look at where the sailors are. They're low to the bottom of the boat, where you can get the best traction with your oar. Now you got people on top of the boat. This is a big ass ship. You are not going to need a ship like this to travel up and down the rivers. Period. You just don't need it. You can use it, trade and shit, you know. But you would think, you know, rivers have several shallow points where a ship this big would just be completely unnecessary. And you can see in their features that these are Africans, by the way. See the afro, lips, all that shit. Alright, so this is in the Sahara Desert. Another one of these boats. This one got two hoods. This is 1360 BC, Tomb of Hu. Now look at this big ass sail, just like the one I showed you with the Micmac ones. Now this they say was used to travel the Nile, which is hard to believe because I'm gonna tell you one thing about this picture. Now, this man here is checking the depth of the water. This man here, this right here, is the lodge from shore. So the Nile you would dock sideways, so you would not need necessarily to run your big ass boat up on land every time you dock somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And I doubt you go travel with this many people, you know what I'm saying, unless it's just a very important trip. But this was obviously a vessel that was used at sea, because you wouldn't need the Niles have the rivers of the Nile have currents that set. So the only thing you would need is an oar to propel you against the current. You only need a sail if you're out at that size. If you out at ocean and you turn in directions, and you gotta go against sea currents, storms, you know what I'm saying, shit like that. Okay, with that being said, this is going back to that. So here we see from Izapa, Mexico, and the ancient Sahara. If you look carefully, you will notice that each boat has the common X with a box sign. See the X on top of that? This is where I'm going to say X marks the spot came from, because they was putting these X's to show that's what their destination was. So I'm asking you, do you see it, or are you still in denial?